Ryan lived on the far edge of the human colony, close to the wild hills where the wind blew strong and the storms were frequent. He was a mechanic by trade, a man who knew how to fix broken engines, solar panels, and water pumps. He liked living away from the crowded heart of the settlement, where voices and arguments never seemed to stop. His home was small but strong, built with his own hands from metal sheets and stone. On most nights, Ryan worked late. He liked the silence of evening when only the hum of the power cells kept him company. The night in question began like any other. The colony's power grid had been unstable since the last sandstorm, and Ryan had promised the overseer that he would check the outer solar arrays. He set out just before sunset with his toolkit, walking along the dirt track that led to the edge of the fields. The sky darkened faster than expected. Clouds gathered, and soon lightning cracked in the distance. The storm was moving in. Ryan sighed, wiped sweat from his forehead, and kept working. He had learned long ago that storms in this region could last days. If he left the panels broken, the colony would suffer without power. By the time he finished, night had fully fallen. The rain came down hard, hammering the metal plates around him. Ryan pulled his coat tight and started for home. His boots sank into the wet ground, but he did not complain. Storms were part of life here. Halfway back, he noticed something unusual near the settlement gates. At first, he thought it was debris blown in by the wind. Then he saw the shape shift, a faint movement that caught his eye. He froze, squinting through the heavy rain. It was not debris. It was a person. Ryan rushed forward. Lying in the mud was a young woman. Her clothes were torn and soaked, her skin pale from the cold. She looked as though she had been running for days. He bent down and touched her shoulder gently. "Are you all right?" he asked, though he doubted she could answer. Her eyes fluttered open. For a brief moment, Ryan felt something strange. Her gaze was sharp, almost glowing in the dim light. But just as quickly, her eyes dimmed, and she whispered a single word. "Shelter." Ryan did not ask more. He lifted her carefully and carried her toward his home. She was lighter than expected, almost too light, as if she had not eaten in days. The storm raged around them, but he kept moving until the door of his workshop came into view. Inside, the room was warm from the heater. Ryan laid the woman on his cot and fetched dry cloths. She did not resist as he wrapped her in blankets. He placed a pot of water on the stove and soon offered her a cup of warm broth. She sipped slowly, her hands trembling. "Thank you," she said in a quiet voice. Ryan nodded. "You were lying outside the gates. What happened to you?" She hesitated, as if searching for words. "Travelers attacked me on the road. I escaped, but I lost my group. I have nowhere to go." Her story seemed simple enough, but there was something in her tone that made Ryan wonder if she was leaving out details. Still, he did not press. She was clearly exhausted. He decided she needed rest more than questions. "You can stay here until the storm passes," he said. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "You are kind." Ryan sat at his workbench, pretending to focus on repairing a circuit board. In truth, he kept glancing at her. Something about her was unusual. Her movements were too graceful, even when weak. Her ears twitched slightly at every sound, sharper than any normal human response. Once, as she shifted in the blankets, he thought he saw something shimmer behind her, like a faint outline of a tail. But when he blinked, the image was gone. He told himself it was only his tired eyes playing tricks. The storm lasted through the night. Ryan checked on her several times, making sure she was comfortable. Each time, she was awake, watching him with those sharp eyes. She spoke little, but her presence filled the room with a quiet energy. When morning came, the rain eased. The colony outside was busy again. Farmers rushed to check their fields, and children splashed through puddles. Ryan stepped out to gather supplies, leaving the woman asleep on the cot. As he walked through the market, he overheard patrol officers speaking near the watchtower. Their voices were low, but Ryan caught enough to understand. They were searching for someone. An escaped shapeshifter, one officer said. Dangerous. Can disguise itself as human. Report any strangers at once. Ryan felt a chill. The description was vague, but it made his thoughts race back to the woman in his home. Her strange eyes, her shimmering outline, her silence about her past, none of it could be ignored now. He returned home quickly. The woman was sitting up, her hair brushed, her face calm. She looked at him as though she had been waiting. You heard the patrol, she said softly. Ryan froze. How do you know what I heard? Her smile was sad. I hear more than most. And I know what you are thinking. He gripped the edge of the table. Are you one of them? She did not answer at once. Instead, she lowered her gaze. If I tell you the truth, will you cast me out? Ryan's chest tightened. Part of him wanted to demand answers. Another part remembered how he had found her in the rain, weak and helpless. She had harmed no one since she arrived. He sighed and sat down across from her. I do not know, he admitted. But I gave you shelter. That promise stands, at least for now. The woman's eyes softened. My name is Lyra. And I am not what you think. But I am not your enemy either. Her words stirred more questions than answers, but Ryan decided not to push further. For now, it was enough to know her name. That evening, as the storm clouds cleared and the first stars appeared, Ryan sat outside his workshop. He thought about the colony, the patrols, and the strange guest under his roof. He did not know what he had stepped into, but deep down, he felt the choice he had made would change his life forever. Inside, Lyra watched him through the window. Her eyes gleamed in the starlight, and though her form was human, a faint shadow of ears and tails lingered around her, unseen by all but the careful eye. She whispered to herself, perhaps this time, I have found safety. And the night grew quiet once more. The storm had passed, but the land outside still carried the mark of its strength. The soil was damp, the air heavy, and small streams of water still ran through the streets of the colony. The farmers were busy repairing broken fences, and children laughed as they splashed in the puddles. For most people, it was simply another day after a storm. For Ryan, however, the morning carried a new weight. Inside his workshop, Lyra sat quietly near the window, watching the light spread across the sky. Her hair shone in the sun, and her eyes moved with a strange alertness. She looked calm, but Ryan noticed how her hands gripped the cup of tea he had given her. She seemed as though she was always listening, always ready to act if danger appeared. Ryan had not forgotten the words of the patrol the day before. They had spoken of a shapeshifter, a being able to disguise itself as human. He had thought about it all night. The description fit Lyra too closely for comfort. Yet, when he looked at her now, sipping her tea and watching the morning light, she seemed fragile and human. He tried to push away his doubts, but questions rose again and again. Who was she really? Why was she near the settlement gates during the storm? And why did she hide so much of her past? Do you need anything from the market? Ryan asked finally. Lyra shook her head. I do not need much. You have already given me more than I expected. Her words were gentle, but her eyes did not leave his face. He felt as though she could see more than he wanted to show. To escape her gaze, he picked up his toolkit. I will check the panels again, he said. Stay inside until I return. She nodded without protest, but there was a small smile on her lips. When Ryan stepped outside, he breathed deeply. The air smelled fresh after the rain. He walked to the market first, buying spare wires and tools. As he passed the patrol post, he slowed his steps. Two officers stood there, speaking quietly. He pretended to look at the tools in his bag, but his ears strained to catch their words. The fugitive has not been caught, one officer said. She is still in the sector. Reports say she can trick the eyes, make herself look human. The other frowned. If she is that dangerous, why has she not struck anyone yet? Maybe she hides her time, the first replied. But the command wants her found. If you see any stranger, you report at once. Ryan walked on quickly. Their words only deepened the storm in his mind. By the time he returned home, he had decided to stay silent. He would not tell anyone about Lyra until he knew more. When he entered the workshop, Lyra was gone from the cot. For a moment his heart raced, but then he heard soft footsteps on the roof. He stepped outside and looked up. She was sitting on the edge of the roof, staring at the hills beyond the colony. Her posture was relaxed, yet her balance was too perfect, as though she belonged on heights where most people would fear falling. You should not climb there, Ryan called. She turned her head. A playful look touched her face. It is peaceful here. The wind carries many voices, if you know how to listen. Her words puzzled him, but he said nothing. She climbed down as easily as she had climbed up, her steps light. The days that followed were strange. Lyra stayed with him, helping in small ways. She cleaned tools, prepared meals, and sometimes sat silently while he worked. Yet she never went far into the colony. She avoided the crowded streets, always choosing the quiet corners. When people passed by his workshop, she hid her face or stepped into the back room. One night, Ryan awoke to find her gone. Alarmed, he grabbed a lantern and stepped outside. The settlement was dark, the stars bright above. He followed faint tracks in the damp soil, leading toward the hills. He found her standing on a ridge, her figure outlined against the moonlight. She moved with strange grace, her hands weaving through the air as if drawing invisible lines. Around her shimmered faint shapes, flickers of light that looked almost like tails swaying gently. Ryan's breath caught. He wanted to call out, but he remained silent, watching. After a few moments, the shimmer vanished. Lyra lowered her hands and turned back toward the settlement. When she saw Ryan, she did not look surprised. You should not have followed me, she said softly. I had to know, he replied. His voice was firm, though his heart beat fast. What are you, Lyra? She did not answer at once. Instead, she walked past him, back toward the workshop. Not yet, she whispered. You are not ready for the truth. Her words lingered in his mind long after they returned home. The next morning, the patrol came closer to his sector. Their search grew more aggressive. Soldiers inspected houses and questioned travelers. Neighbors whispered about the danger of hiding a fugitive. Ryan felt his stomach twist each time the officers walked past his door. That evening, he confronted Lyra again. She was sitting at the table, repairing one of his tools with surprising skill. "You cannot stay hidden forever," Ryan said. "The patrol grows suspicious. If they find you here, both of us will be in danger." She placed the tool down and looked at him. "And if I leave, will you be safe?" "Yes," he answered quickly, though his heart knew it was not true. If she left and was caught, they might still trace her steps back to him. Lyra sighed. "You gave me shelter when I had nothing. I do not want to bring harm to you. But if I leave now, I will not survive." Her voice was calm, yet filled with something deeper, a fear she could not hide. Ryan rubbed his forehead. "I do not understand you. You act human, but I see things that are not human. You vanish at night. I saw the light around you. Tell me the truth, Lyra. I need to know who you are." For a long moment, she was silent. Then she whispered, "If I tell you, you may turn me in. You may fear me. But if you promise not to betray me, I will share the truth soon. Not tonight, but soon." Ryan wanted to demand answers, but the look in her eyes stopped him. They were not the eyes of a monster or a deceiver. They were the eyes of someone who carried a heavy burden. "Very well," he said finally. "I will wait. But I expect the truth before long." She nodded, and relief softened her face. That night, as Ryan lay awake, he thought about his choice. He could have told the patrol already. He could have freed himself of the danger she brought. But something inside him refused to abandon her. He remembered the way she had whispered for shelter, the way she had smiled when he offered kindness. She was not simply a fugitive. She was something more, and he wanted to understand. Outside, the patrol drones flew over the colony, their searchlights sweeping across the ground. Lyra sat by the window, her eyes reflecting the lights as they passed. She whispered words in a language Ryan did not know, her voice soft like the wind. The colony slept, unaware that within one small workshop, a secret grew stronger with each passing night. Ryan had chosen to wait. But waiting would not keep the truth away forever. The days passed slowly, each one filled with tension that Ryan could not ignore. Patrols came more often now, their boots heavy on the streets, their voices sharp as they questioned the settlers. Everyone in the colony knew a fugitive was near. Fear spread through the people like smoke from a fire. Neighbors locked their doors early, and children were told not to wander far. Ryan kept working as usual, repairing machines, fixing broken engines, and selling parts in the market. Yet his mind was never at peace. Each time the patrol walked near his workshop, his heart beat faster. He wondered if they would burst through his door, if they would discover Lyra hiding inside. Lyra stayed quiet during the day. She moved carefully, always avoiding the eyes of strangers. But at night, Ryan sometimes heard her whispering words he did not understand. He caught glimpses of strange light around her, faint shapes that flickered like shadows of tales. He no longer believed it was his imagination. He knew she was more than human. One evening, when the sun sank and painted the sky with red and gold, Ryan returned from the market to find Lyra standing outside the workshop. Her face was calm, but her eyes held a storm of thought. "You said you wanted the truth," she said softly. Ryan nodded. "Yes. I need to know who you are. I cannot protect what I do not understand." She looked toward the hills, then back at him. "Then come with me." "Not here. Not inside these walls." He hesitated, but something in her voice told him this moment was important. He followed her as she walked beyond the edge of the colony. The air grew cooler, and the sounds of the settlement faded behind them. They stopped on a ridge where the stars shone bright above and the wind carried only silence. Lyra turned to him. Her hands trembled slightly as she began to speak. "My name is Lyra, as I told you. But I am not only a woman of flesh like you. My people are called Vuri. Long ago, we lived far from human space, hidden in forests and mountains of worlds unknown to your kind. We are fox spirits, as some call us. We can weave illusions, change what others see, and hide ourselves from enemies. It is a gift and a curse." Ryan stared at her, unsure what to say. She continued, her voice steady though her eyes were sad. "Others fear us. They say our power is dangerous. They hunt us, capture us, and use us as weapons. I was taken by one of those hunters. I escaped, but I lost my kin. I ran until I reached your colony. And then you found me, in the storm." Her words struck Ryan like thunder. He wanted to deny it, to call it impossible, but deep inside he knew it was true. The strange movements, the shimmering tales, the way she sensed things before they happened, it all made sense now. "You can change your form," he said slowly. "You can appear human." She nodded. "Yes. It is how I survived. But I am always myself beneath the veil. What you see now is both truth and disguise." Ryan took a deep breath. "Why tell me this? I could turn you in. I could call the patrol." Her eyes met his, sharp yet filled with trust. "Because you gave me shelter when you had no reason to. You showed me kindness when others would have given me to the hunters. I believe you are not like them. I believe you will listen." Ryan looked at her for a long time. In her eyes, he did not see a monster. He saw fear, hope, and strength. She had trusted him with her secret, and he could not betray that trust. "I will not turn you in," he said firmly. "But the patrol will not stop searching. If they find you here, it will end badly for both of us." Lyra's face softened with relief. "Thank you. I know the risk you take. But I cannot run forever. My power is strong, yet I am not unbreakable. If I must keep fleeing, I will be lost." Ryan crossed his arms. "Then we must find a way to keep you safe." Before Lyra could answer, a sharp sound echoed from the distance. Both of them froze. A patrol drone hovered above the hills, its red light sweeping across the ridge. Ryan grabbed Lyra's arm and pulled her into the shadows of a rock. The drone scanned the area, then flew on. When it was gone, Ryan let out a breath. "They are too close. They will find you sooner or later." Lyra closed her eyes, whispering softly. For a brief moment, the air shimmered around them. The hillside seemed to blur, and their outlines faded into the shadows. Ryan gasped as he realized what she had done. She had cloaked them in illusion. "This is my gift," she said quietly. "I can hide us from their eyes. But it is not endless. My strength fades if I use it too much." Ryan touched the rock wall beside him, still seeing his hand but knowing others could not. "Incredible," he whispered. When they returned to the workshop, the weight between them had changed. The truth was no longer hidden. Ryan now understood the danger fully, and he also understood the choice he had made. He had chosen to stand beside her. That night, as they sat together inside, Ryan asked her more. "You said your people were hunted. By who?" Her eyes darkened. By many. Some humans, some not. The powerful fear what they cannot control. They call us deceivers, but it is their fear that creates cruelty. They put chains on my kin and force them to weave illusions for war. I escaped before they could bind me. Ryan clenched his fists. He had always believed humans could be cruel, but hearing it from her lips filled him with anger. If they come here, they will try to take you again. Yes, she said. And they will not stop until they succeed or until I am gone. Ryan leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Then we must be ready. Lyra looked at him in surprise. You would stand against them? Even for me? He met her gaze without fear. You asked me once why I sheltered you. I did not think then, I only acted. But now I know. You are not my enemy. You are someone who needs help. And humans, at least some of us, do not turn away from those in need. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Lyra smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. Perhaps your people are not all as they say. Perhaps there is hope. The night passed quietly, but the bond between them grew stronger. Ryan no longer saw her only as a stranger. She was Lyra, the fox woman who had trusted him with her truth. And though danger loomed close, he felt a new strength inside himself. Outside, the patrol continued their search. Lights swept across the hills, and soldiers whispered about the fugitive. But inside the small workshop, a choice had been made. Ryan would not betray her. He would protect her, no matter what came. The days of uneasy peace did not last long. The patrol was no longer just searching the outer hills. They began to enter homes inside the colony itself. Their boots struck the ground like hammers, their voices sharp as they demanded to know if anyone had seen the fugitive. Ryan could feel the net tightening. His workshop stood near the edge of the settlement, a place that was easy to overlook. But sooner or later, the patrol would come. Lyra sensed it too. She moved carefully, speaking less and keeping to the back room when strangers came near. Sometimes she cloaked herself in illusion when sounds of patrol boots grew close. But even she admitted her power could not hide her forever. They will come here, she told Ryan one night. When they do, I cannot stand against them alone. Illusion can confuse them, but not stop their weapons. Ryan nodded. Then we must be clever. Machines can help us where illusions cannot. He spent the next few days working harder than ever. His hands moved quickly across wires, circuits, and panels. He built decoys to trick scanners, rewired old drones to mislead the patrol, and rigged false signals to send them away from his sector. Lyra watched with quiet respect. You are like us, she said once. Your gift is not illusion, but creation. You shape the world with your hands. Ryan only gave a small smile. It is what I know. The moment of truth came sooner than either of them hoped. One afternoon, while the sun blazed overhead, Ryan heard the sound of engines. Patrol vehicles rolled into the street outside his workshop. The voices of soldiers barked orders, and heavy boots struck the ground. They are here, Ryan whispered. Lyra's eyes sharpened. Then we must decide now. Ryan moved quickly, hiding her in the back room. He triggered a device he had set up, one that masked energy readings inside the house. The patrol would not easily detect her presence. Still, he knew they would not simply scan and leave. Moments later, the door banged open. 3 soldiers entered, their armor shining in the light. The leader stepped forward, his visor glowing red. Mechanic Ryan, the soldier said coldly. We are searching for a fugitive. She is not human. She may appear as one. Have you seen any strangers? Ryan kept his face calm. No strangers here. Only broken machines that need fixing. The soldier's gaze scanned the room. We will search. Without waiting for permission, the soldiers began to move through the workshop. They opened cupboards, looked under the workbench, and scanned the walls. Ryan's heart pounded, but he forced himself to remain steady. In the back room, Lyra waited in silence, her form hidden by a thin veil of illusion. But Ryan knew if the soldiers entered too deeply, they might still notice her. One of them moved toward the back door. Ryan stepped in front of him. "Careful there," he said quickly. "The wires in that room are unstable. If you touch them, you will fry your suit." The soldier frowned but pulled back slightly. The leader did not seem convinced. "If you are hiding her, mechanic, you will regret it." Ryan's mind raced. He had to buy more time. He picked up one of his drones and powered it on. "Look here," he said, holding it out. "This one scans for energy leaks. If your fugitive came near, it would have detected her. Do you see any alarms?" The soldier stared at the silent drone. For a moment, Ryan feared the trick would fail. Then the leader lowered his weapon slightly. "We will check again later. Do not leave this area. If you see her, report at once." With that, the patrol turned and left, their boots echoing on the street. The sound of engines faded as the vehicles rolled away. Ryan closed the door and leaned against it, his breath shaking. Lyra stepped from the back room, her face pale but calm. "You risked everything," she said softly. Ryan shook his head. "No, I did what I had to. They will come again, and next time they may not leave so easily." That night, they planned together. Lyra showed him how her illusions worked, how she could bend light and sound to create false images. Ryan explained how machines could project signals and create decoys. Slowly, they formed a plan. "If we combine your illusions with my devices," Ryan said, "we can make them chase shadows. They will think they are close to catching you, but they will only follow tricks." Lyra smiled faintly. "Together, perhaps we can outsmart them." The chance to test their plan came sooner than expected. 2 days later, a larger patrol force arrived. This time they did not only search. They brought scanners, drones, and heavy weapons. The settlement buzzed with fear as soldiers marched through the streets. "They know you are here," Ryan said grimly. Lyra stood tall. "Then let us show them they cannot take me so easily." As the patrol advanced, Ryan activated his devices. Signals flared, and scanners picked up false readings from every corner of the settlement. At the same time, Lyra spread her illusions. Shadows moved where no one stood, voices whispered from empty alleys, and shapes of running figures appeared in the distance. The soldiers shouted in confusion, chasing the false images. Their drones flew after decoys, only to crash into walls or vanish into empty fields. The patrol leader roared orders, but the chaos grew. From the roof of the workshop, Ryan watched with awe as Lyra moved her hands in graceful patterns. The illusions danced across the streets, weaving a maze of light and sound. The soldiers could not tell truth from trick. Yet the danger was not gone. One soldier broke away from the confusion and spotted Ryan on the roof. He raised his weapon. Ryan ducked just as the shot blasted past him, burning into the wall. Lyra reacted instantly. She cast an illusion of fire, making it seem as though the roof exploded in flames. The soldier stumbled back, shouting in alarm. By the time he regained his focus, Ryan and Lyra were gone, hidden by another veil of shadow. They slipped through the alleys, moving quickly toward the hills. Behind them, the patrol struggled in the web of tricks. Voices rose in anger, and weapons fired at shadows that vanished as soon as they appeared. At last, when they reached the ridge outside the colony, Lyra released the illusions. Her face was pale, her breath heavy. "You pushed yourself too far," Ryan said, supporting her. "I had to," she whispered. "If they had found us, it would have ended here." Ryan looked back at the colony. The patrol was still searching, but they had no idea where their prey had gone. For the moment, they were safe. "We cannot stay in the settlement," Ryan said. "They will search every home until they find proof. We must move beyond their reach." Lyra nodded weakly. "You would leave your life behind for me." Ryan's eyes were steady. "I gave you shelter once. That promise has not ended. Wherever we go together." Her smile was faint but filled with trust. "Then let us see where the stars lead." That night, under the vast sky, a mechanic and a fox woman began their journey beyond the walls of the colony. Humanity had shown its choice once more, not fear, but courage, not betrayal, but trust. And somewhere in the shadows, the hunters swore they would not stop until the fugitive was theirs. But for the first time, Lyra was not running alone. The hills beyond the colony stretched wide and open, carrying the scent of wet soil from the recent storms. Ryan and Lyra walked together through the tall grass, their steps slow but steady. Behind them, the colony was no longer safe. Patrol soldiers had turned the settlement into a hunting ground. Every alley, every house, and every field was searched again and again. The people whispered of the fugitive who could change form, and suspicion grew like a shadow over the streets. Yet Ryan did not regret his choice. He had given Lyra his word, and his word held weight. They could not stay in hiding forever, but he also knew they could not simply run endlessly. If the hunters would never stop, then running was only delaying the battle. For 2 days, they traveled into the hills, carrying only a small bag of food and tools. At night, they rested under the stars. Sometimes Lyra wove illusions of warm shelters, making the ground feel softer and the air warmer. Ryan admired her skill, though he worried about how much energy it cost her. On the 3rd day, they saw smoke rising from the direction of the colony. Ryan climbed a ridge to get a better view. His heart sank. Patrol transports filled the settlement, larger in number than before. Soldiers poured into the streets, setting up barricades and heavy weapons. It was no longer a search. It was a full occupation. "They know you are here," Ryan said grimly. "They will not stop until they catch you." Lyra stood beside him, her eyes shining in the sunlight. "They will not only harm me. They will harm your people too. They will treat the settlers as traitors if they believe you hid me." Ryan clenched his fists. He had tried to protect the colony by hiding her, but now the people were in danger because of it. His jaw tightened as he made a decision. "Then we do not run farther," he said firmly. "We stand here. We fight not just for us, but for the colony. The people must not suffer for showing kindness." Lyra looked at him with surprise. "You would fight them? They have weapons, machines, numbers. You are only one human mechanic." Ryan met her gaze with steady eyes. "I am one human, yes. But humans are more than numbers. We make tools. We adapt. We endure. And I am not alone." You are with me. For a moment, silence stretched between them. Then Lyra smiled, a true smile that carried strength. Then let us stand together. They returned quietly to the colony that night, slipping past the patrol guards who now watched every gate. Inside, Ryan gathered a few trusted settlers, people who respected him for his work and honesty. He told them the truth. He spoke of Lyra, of her people, and of the hunters who wanted to use her as a weapon. At first, the settlers were afraid. Some wanted to hand her over. But when Ryan reminded them how the patrol already treated them like enemies, they saw the truth. Surrendering her would not bring peace. The patrol would only grow stronger, and the settlers would remain under their boots. We must defend our home, Ryan said. We cannot match their firepower, but we can outthink them. We know the streets, the land, the machines. If we fight with courage and cleverness, we can make them leave. The settlers agreed. Fear still filled their eyes, but behind the fear was determination. They were farmers, workers, and traders, but they were also human. And humans, when pushed, could be fierce. Over the next 2 days, Ryan and Lyra worked with the settlers to prepare. Ryan built traps and decoys, turning farming machines into weapons. He rigged the irrigation pumps to flood streets, wired drones with false signals, and planted energy cells that could be triggered like mines. Lyra used her illusions to train the settlers, showing them how to move unseen and confuse the enemy. She could make one person look like many, or hide groups within shadows. The settlers learned quickly, encouraged by her calm guidance. When the patrol launched their next sweep, they did not find a weak colony waiting to surrender. They found resistance. The first strike came at dawn. Patrol drones scanned the streets, but their readings were scrambled by Ryan's devices. Soldiers moved in tight formation, only to find themselves separated by illusions that made the streets twist and turn. They fired at figures that vanished into smoke, while real settlers struck from the shadows. Water from the irrigation pumps flooded one road, trapping vehicles in the mud. In another street, hidden energy cells exploded, forcing soldiers to scatter. The settlers used their knowledge of the land to ambush from rooftops and alleys. Ryan fought not with guns, but with his machines. Each time the patrol thought they had disabled his tricks, he activated new ones. Sparks flew, drones fell from the sky, and scanners turned blind. His hands were steady, his mind sharp. Beside him, Lyra wove illusions that turned the battlefield into a maze. She made the settlers appear as an army far larger than they truly were. She cloaked their retreat when they needed to fall back and created phantom warriors to distract the enemy. The patrol leader grew furious. His soldiers shouted in confusion as they chased shadows and fired at empty air. "It is trickery," he roared. "Find the source." They tried to break into Ryan's workshop, believing the devices were hidden there. But the settlers defended it with courage, and Lyra cloaked the building in illusion, making it vanish from sight. The patrol attacked the wrong house, wasting their strength. The battle lasted through the day and into the night. The settlers were tired, but they refused to give in. For every trick the patrol tried, Ryan and Lyra answered with another. At last, when the patrol leader saw his soldiers exhausted and his machines failing, he made the order to retreat. The transports pulled back, their engines roaring into the night. The settlers watched from the rooftops as the patrol withdrew beyond the hills. Cheers rose in the colony. For the first time, they had not bowed to the hunters. They had stood their ground and won. Ryan leaned against the wall, his clothes dirty and his hands covered in grease. He was tired to the bone, but his heart was steady. Lyra stood beside him, her face pale from the effort of using so much of her power. Yet her eyes glowed with pride. "You see," she said softly, "humans are stronger than I was told. You fight not only with weapons, but with spirit." Ryan gave a small smile. "And you are stronger than I could have imagined. Without you, we would not have stood a chance." The settlers gathered around them, voices rising in thanks. They no longer looked at Lyra with fear. They saw her as one of them, someone who had fought for their home. From that day, the colony was changed. The patrol did not return quickly. They had been humbled, and word spread of a small settlement that had defied their hunt. For Lyra, it was the first place she had ever found where she was not only hidden, but accepted. She no longer had to whisper her name in fear. She could walk the streets beside Ryan, her ears and tails hidden only when strangers passed. For Ryan, it was proof that kindness had not been a mistake. By offering shelter, he had found something greater than he ever expected. He had found trust, friendship, and the chance to show that humanity was more than fear. As the stars shone above the quiet hills, Lyra looked at him with a smile. "Perhaps this is what safety feels like." Ryan nodded. "Not just safety. A new beginning." Together, the mechanic and the fox woman stood at the edge of the colony, watching the horizon. The hunters might return one day, but they would be ready. And they would not stand alone. For in this small corner of space, humanity had proven once again that it could not be underestimated. Compassion had forged strength, and trust had built a bond that no enemy could easily break. And so, their story did not end with fear, but with hope.